Hello everyone, welcome back to Grim Dawn. Did I need to sell any of this stuff? Yeah, probably. Yeah, a lot of this stuff needs to go, actually. So, now we're going to be going down into what I call the Slith Cellar. I can equip this now, we might as well. And, deal with this little incident. Now, I'm doing this slightly later than I normally would. I normally do it after progressing to the first rift there. Let me see if I can show you. I usually do it after reaching the Whitemire Rift. I pushed a little bit farther than I normally would, and you can see where I'm kind of pushing this a little bit here. We've got level 15, we got some level 13s, we got some level 14s. If memory serves, they really don't go any higher than that. They might go up to 16. I can't quite remember. But I definitely took a bit of a risk waiting this long to get around to doing this. Especially since I was a little over-leveled at one point there. That was quite the risk. This would have been even more egregious if I'd gone through Flooded Passage and hit level 15, though. But it is something you just have to keep an eye on. As you can see, it is manageable to come here this late, so don't feel like a lot of pressure. You're just taking a bit of a risk. It's not like you're going to lose a ton of experience by being level 15 or 16 at this point. Just keep it in mind. There's also a second benefit to coming here a little earlier than I did. How many spoders can I kill with this? A decent amount. They're waltzing right on in with no problems. That was a complete failure. You can see just how large this gets from level 1 if you remember a couple of episodes ago. There we go. Well, that was a fail. You can also see how much energy this is taking up, which is also why I'm going to want to Scondra's Elemental Exchange sooner rather than later. Alright, that's just ridiculous. Hello? Why did you suddenly... There we go. You have to really go out there all the time. Fair enough. I'm gonna leave. Not bad. Anyways, another reason why you'd want to come here a little earlier is this chest often gives you green stuff, and if you arrive here at the time that I normally would, which would be when you hit the Whitemire Rift, you are actually going to... no, my resistances are way too good on that right now. Are they too high? Little. Aether resistance. I don't care about my stun resistance at this point. My bleed resistance, kind of need that. Poison resistance, good. Pierce resistance. Now I'm gonna go ahead and keep what I have now. I need most of those resistances at this particular point in time. I'm gonna be really honest. A lot of the time, your armor, while important, isn't the be-all, end-all. I've had characters and I've seen people make the mistake of focusing exclusively on armor, and vice versa. However, one thing is very true of your equipment. Your jewelry, your badge, your necklace, or your amulet, I guess it's officially called, and your rings, as well as likely your belt, are going to be your best sources of resistances, and should be the focal point of your resistance increases. At this early stage of the game, I'm going to be looking at upgrades pretty often. The lower your level, the more often you're going to be upgrading your equipment, in all honesty. As you level up, you change out your equipment less and less, to the point where you almost never change your equipment past 94 once you get kind of your end game epic or legendary equipment. Maybe you find something better, potentially, or maybe you're using something temporarily until you can farm that level 94 better item, but you're only really going to change your equipment once or twice unless you're changing builds completely. I'll talk about that at the end game. You don't need to worry about that now, but at this early point in the game, the resistances I get from my current shoes are strong enough where I want to keep that and sacrifice a little bit of armor, at least at this time. Later on, that might change, depending on what shoes I find, depending on what kind of damage outputs I'm seeing, things of that nature. So, that's really what we're going to be looking at here. Now, this area is very dangerous for those of you who are going to play on hardcore. This is what I call the Spider Hall. If the spiders open up the door on their own like this, if you don't have some form of self-heal like I have here, you could probably guess how ugly that swarm of spiders can get for you on hardcore. Again, some form of self-healing besides health potions can really help get through that, but not all classes have that, obviously, and you might not have one of those yourself, so approach that with some caution if you don't have that. And even if you do, some caution is still justified, because they can poison you while attacking you in an absolutely unholy barrage, so it's best to just treat that with some mild caution. Alright, now we're just going to go ahead and clear this out here. And notice that I'm really not in any health danger here. I'm healing enough from these. Finally, some good armor. I'm healing enough off of these guys that I don't really need to be too concerned at this particular point with my health. Again, I have this maxed. Oop, that's not quite what I wanted to do. And I'm leveling up Inner Focus next, and then I'm going to get a Skandra's Elemental Exchange afterwards. That's going to really help me to not only do some different damage, a little bit more variety of damage, but also to increase my energy regeneration. Now, there are only three. Let me put it this way. I've talked about this in the first episode, but I want to reiterate this really quick. A lot of people in the Grim Dawn community really advocate for a 1 damage focus build. This is fairly nonsense to me because almost all abilities in the game do at minimum 2 types of damage. The problem with Occultist, Arcanist, and Soldier very specifically is that they all focus so much on specific damage types that whole factions are resistant to, or in the case of soldiers, bosses to some extent, that it can be very difficult for them to punch through very specific enemies. The soldier, for example, does almost exclusively physical damage. There is a bit of piercing in there, but it's almost all physical damage. There's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with this, but most heroes and bosses in the late game, I'm talking from ultimate difficulty onwards, have a passive extra 15% resistance or so. I think it's 15%. So, compared to other damage types, physical actually deals a little less against bosses and heroes than other damage types typically will, because that is a 15% physical resistance on top of their normally increased resistances. Obviously, there is the constellation that reduces physical protections, which I'll actually take a moment to point out. The easy way to deal with this is the Assassin's Mark here, which you can see reduces physical and pierce resistance, which is fine, but that doesn't quite well, it overcomes that resistance, the boosted resistance, but it doesn't quite overcome, say, the combination of the natural and the boosted resistance that is present, and so while physical damage comes very close, it is still slightly less effective than literally any other damage type in the game, which is why piercing damage is so important for the soldier. That's why Force Wave is so popular among a couple of other abilities. It's why Cadence is so important for soldiers a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. But also a lot of soldiers typically will take a secondary class that will offer them some sort of benefit with which, or some other damage type that will help them out in their ability to fight against bosses and heroes. For example, you could, as a soldier, grab, say, Demolitionist, which boosts physical damage, which you would want, but it also gives you some elemental damage in the form of lightning and fire damage, or chaos damage if you're into it. So you've got some other damage type outputs with, say, Demolitionist, with Oathkeeper, which does physical and fire as well, or actually you could also do Vitality and Poison with the Oathkeeper as well if you really wanted to. But you've got all of those options, so it's very important for you to take at least 2 damage types. Now, the problem with the Cultist and Arcanist, I'm going to take a second to demonstrate, as I've already talked about, the Chthonic faction, which we've seen glimpses of, are heavily resistant to the Chaos and Vitality damage, and to a mild extent the Poison and Acid damage of the Occultist. So the Occultist relies on its secondary mastery to deal with that faction. Whether you're picking up something briefly, or picking up only one very specific skill just to deal with Chthonics, it doesn't really make a huge difference. A great candidate actually is, interestingly enough, the Shaman, who can combine the vitality damage of the Occultist with some really impressive bleed damage, or some lightning if you're into it, and give you that way of skirting around those defenses of Chthonics. And the same thing with Arcanists and the Ethereal faction. Ethereals are resistant to Aether and very commonly elemental damage types. They're pretty resistant to those. And that's 100% what the Arcanist does, so you need alternatives. You need a way of dealing with those ethereal enemies. So you have to pick up something from the subclass. This is actually why I like the Occultist Arcanist combination, is because 100% of their damage is really focused on Spirit. They all pulls from Spirit, and they complement each other perfectly. Ethereals are weak to the Vitality and Chaos damage, and the Chthonics are weak to the Aether damage, and to a mild extent, Lightning and Ice. They're a little resistant to Fire. But that's really why I like this combination. And there are a lot of ways you can go around and do this kind of thing. You can splash in a little bit of, this damage or that damage, but almost every ability in the game, actually, I think Alexa's Flash Freeze and Frozen Core is the only ability that I can think of that doesn't. Maybe there's a couple of other ones I'm not thinking about, that I'm not thinking of at this time, but that's the only ability I can think of off the top of my head that only and exclusively does one damage type. Everything else does two. So, to limit yourself to one damage type is never a particularly good idea. I vigorously and will absolutely die on the hill of going for at least two. In this particular build, I'm going to be going for likely approximately three. Aether and Chaos will absolutely be two of them, but whether I go for a Vitality or an Elemental damage leaning as my third, I'm not sure. I could even splash in some Poison Acid. It really depends on what equipment I wind up with as I continue on through the game, but right now I am definitely looking at a heavy Chaos and Vitality damage because I've got the lovely Void-touched Bloodsworn Scepter of the Void, which is just an absolutely great time. Now that we've killed Vyloth or whatever their name is down there, we talk to these people, we get some experience. I'm on a nice level of 15, and now we're going to return to the Burwitch Outskirts, where we're going to do some very specific pathing, so that way we can complete our objectives efficiently and get a good amount. I don't know why I bothered kicking that over again. We're going to get a good amount of experience, we're going to accomplish our objectives, and we're not going to get too high of a level, because this is the part at which I find it's very easy to start over-leveling if you linger, if you really wander around and spend a lot of time just bouncing from enemy group to enemy group and just absolutely going nutsoid. Yeah, you can overlevel fairly easily in this area, and that's not really something you want to do. I'm just going to come down here and kill these people because, honestly, I'm just kind of got caught up in this. You can see how much experience I'm gaining right now just from that one group of enemies, so we really want to take this with a bit of caution in this area, but we need to make our way over to Angrim so we can grab that blacksmith, which is going to be very important for us in the future. So we're going to head right up here. Oh, a hero. Is that two heroes? Is that another hero right there? Hold up. No, that is... Oh, that's another hero way over there, but I thought that other one right there next to me was a hero. It is not. We're going to use a health potion here. I'm getting fairly bopped here. Alright. Fortunately, half the spiders came into my immediate field of range. We're going to come down here and get rid of this guy really quick first. Actually, he's getting some reinforcements in here, so we're going to go over here. There we go. Actually, we're going to stand on this side. Nope, come on. There you go. Oh, you've got fire, huh? That's pretty cute. I have good fire resistance, though. I have 80%, so I'm not too concerned at this point. And ta-da! The power of... What is this called again? Signal of Consumption. Now, a lot of old hands at the game will point out that, yeah, that doesn't necessarily always remain that consistent. That would be really nice if I had a Scandrus. It's not always going to remain that consistent. That's going to really depend on how I use my constellations. If I time it right, I'm going to have a really smooth transition for that ability into the late game. Pardon me, I just hit puberty and excitement. For that day. Oh, hey, that's pretty neat. But it really depends. You're going to have a lot of people. If you're new to this game, if you're new to the community, you're going to have a lot of people telling you what's good, what's bad. I'm going to be really honest. There is very few things in the game that are straight up not viable, even if you use them right. Most things in the game, if you plan properly and you strategize properly, it's viable. Remember that this isn't really a PvP game a lot of the times. There is a PvP sort of section of the community. There is a PvP option that I'm not really going to get into because that's not why I play this game. I have other games for PvP if I want that. I play this game for just the glory of whacking people and grabbing cool loots without paying thousands and thousands of dollars to do so. But this is where we're going to find Angrim. Now, this is actually an important choice. If you're new to this, this is vitally important. You get to choose whether you want Angrim as your blacksmith, or if you want, what's his name? The kid back at the camp there. The difference here is that Angrim's equipment, when he makes green equipment, it's more likely to have physical boosts, armor boosts, things like that. It's a bit more on the physical side. If you're a soldier, if you're an oath keeper, if you're a demolitionist, or if you're a shaman, this is a fairly viable option. It's practically a requirement if you're playing oath keeper or soldier, for reference, or a physical heavy demolitionist, or a physical heavy shaman. Keep in mind, demolitionist has elemental, and so does shaman. If you decide to take the Duncan, that's the kid's name. If you decide to take Duncan, your items are more likely to have a boost in elemental damage, in spirit, and things like that. This is really good for arcanists, elements, heavy shamans, or demolitionists, necromancers a little bit, things like that. Because I'm an arcanist, I'm going with Duncan. But if I was a soldier or something like that, I would be going with Angrim. There are exclusive stat boosts for both of these in that line. Again, Angrim has exclusively higher armor boosts than, say, Duncan does. That's not to say that they're necessarily impossible, they're just higher than the other one's going to be. So, this is not necessarily a too difficult conversation. If you want, you can bring up a guide or slow down the video with my choices there. That's the guaranteed way to get Duncan. It's pretty intuitive if you just read the conversation. Don't stress too much about it. It's a pretty easy conversation. Now, you'll remember that I had some trouble with... I'm actually going to get rid of these guys really quick. You'll remember I had some trouble with the totem before. My first totem was fairly difficult for me. All I had at that time were the eyeballs. This time I have the Sigil of Consumption, and so this is going to go a lot differently for me this time. I'm just going to get rid of these guys because they are, in fact... potentially, if the battle wanders in this direction, they could become a problem. Just because I'm more confident with Sigil of Consumption does not necessarily mean that I will prevail. It really depends on who spawns here. Alright, no one that's specifically Chaos or Vitality resistant. In fact, we have an Aether enemy here, which is a really good sign, although he's absolutely slapping me right now. There we go. We're going to get rid of you really quick first, partially because you're going to die a little faster. Look how fast he goes. And you're leaving behind Aether, which is also why I wanted to get rid of you first. You're pretty weak at this point to Chaos and Vitality because low difficulty level. Okay, we're almost done with that. That's probably from... what am I equipped with that increases that? It is this. I thought so. Alright, let's see if we got any good pieces of equipment. This is better resistances and better armor, so we're going to go ahead and equip that. We need some pretty serious physique. We also... well, do I want to equip this? Better armor, yeah. I don't do pierce damage. Well, I don't do lightning and aether damage at this point either. Physique isn't a bad thing. Ring of Steel isn't going to do me much good, and I don't really... well... let's see what else we pick up first. I don't want shields. No. I mean, that's a really cool shield for me, specifically, because it increases vitality and aether damage. But I'm not at the point yet where I'm doing that, so I'm not really that concerned. And there will be offhands that'll have the same options. This is got better resistances, but lower armor, which is an interesting concept. I prefer the Insight, though. That's going to do me more good. So we're not going to equip that. This is Vitality Aether, which is nice. Offers pierce resistance as compared to my vitality resistance, which is nice. 6% health. Yeah, this is a better belt, even though I don't necessarily use Drain Essence. It is a little bit of a better belt. Lightning, Vitality, Aether. I don't do lightning, and I'm not looking to use two-handed this time. I don't do elemental yet. My scepter is going to be better, especially once I deliver the hammer. This is Ring of Steel. Pierce damage, bleed damage. Resistances aren't as good. Armor is barely higher. That's not even worth it. No. That's a decent helmet. 20 physique, 6 spirit, 6% spirit. Let me rephrase that. Yeah, actually, that's probably better than the other one that I picked up. I'm glad I waited. Nope, don't need that. And, no, I don't need that either. Alright, so, feasibly, at this point, we're gonna head north. Right, we're gonna clear out these guys. These guys are level 14. You can see where they've got the green numbers, so we're okay for now. 16, good, good. But you notice that's a dark green color. We're on the verge here of being too over leveled. So we're gonna want to take this carefully, and we're going to get rid of you. Can we get rid of both of you at the same time so you don't heal each other? There we go. Do you heal again? Yeah, I think they all do actually, if I remember correctly. Get rid of you. Notice I can even overwhelm the healing from these guys with that. Also, peep my decent auto attacks with my regular attacks there. Ooh. Now, this seems fairly impressive, but this is not factoring in the fact that the Sickle of Consumption is doing a lot more damage, especially once I get Destruction. This is factoring in the physical damage. This would only temporarily be better for me. While I could equip it now, I'm not going to, especially since it requires... It's this one right here, right? Yeah. It requires much higher physique, and while physique does increase my health and it is nice, it's not necessarily something I need a lot of right now. I'm not really struggling for health, so I don't really want to just increase my physique for a weapon I'm going to be using in the short run, not in the long term. Very short run, by the way, because again, I'm only level 16 out of 100, so I am very likely to just replace my weapon pretty soon anyways, in like probably 10 or less levels. I would say 8 specifically. I think the scepter has 24, so it's just not worth it. We're just going to wipe these guys out here. We're not going to be staying in the mud row much longer. We're almost through. Get rid of these guys really quick. And there we go. Now, there's my map. Now, if you go down here, there's Burial Hill, which has a shrine in it. That's pretty much the only reason you would want to go down there. And I'm actually going to pop down there myself very quickly, because I do want that constellation point at this particular point in time. I'm pushing my luck a little bit with this. I could accidentally get a little too high in level, but it wouldn't, again, it wouldn't be like crippling or anything. So we're going to go for it. Now, if you haven't done the totem like I just did, you might want to come over here, because sometimes the totem spawns at the top of the hill, or sometimes rocks will block the way over here and you have to take the long way, but we don't care about any of that because we didn't have any of that happen. Now, if you're really hard up for Aether Crystals, I don't happen to be at this time, you can also farm Aether Crystals here. There's better places later on in the game, but if you're really desperate for Aether Crystals, this is a good place to come for those. I'm wandering away from this equipment. Hold on. There we go. Some nice free vitality resistance, which we honestly don't need too much at this point in the game. I'm going to be really honest. That's not too important. I don't care about any of that. We're just going to ignore him. I don't want to get involved in the fight here. I just wanted the shrine, and now I'm leaving. Again, you can choose to stay if you want Aether Crystals. That's totally fine. It's if you're not prepared for it, it can be a tough fight at this level, but later on down the road, it's not really going to be. It really depends on how good your build is, how lucky you are with equipment at this point. Early game, your luck is going to kind of be dependent here, because just if you're unlucky with your equipment drops, you're going to have a really hard time surviving abnormally difficult situations like that area with a high amount of enemies. I've been fairly fortunate, actually, so I had a bit of a rough time at the early game, and I still need new pants. But overall, why did I pass by my bridge? Yes. So we're looking for this little, like, waiting spot, I guess you could actually call it. Oh, here's the Grobble Toxic Effigy that I was talking about that increases Streak's Evil Eye. If you're looking to do poison acid damage, this is great. The vitality damage is from the decay keyword there, but you can see it's really effective. If I were to keep Dreek's Evil Eye, it would be absolutely incredible. Fantastic little item. But I'm going for a poison build. I love those. Now we're going to talk to Ulgrim. We're just going to tell him about the prison. That's delightful. Okay, well, that would be good if I did ice damage. Now we're just going to come over here. We're just going to get rid of these enemies here. And whack these goons. That was a fairly good amount of poison damage coming in from these guys. Let's get rid of this little problem right here. Yeah? Throw this down here so we can get rid of all this absolute stuff and nonsense. Now we're going to come over here. And we're going to take out another objective. And take this out. Good. Come over here. Yeah. That should take out almost everyone here. Good. Perfect. Now we're going to waltz over here and take out these guys. These two heroes are an objective for the side quest where we're killing guys, as you probably are aware of. So we're just going to take care of these guys really quick. That guy's vitality damage, so he's not going to die as fast, because that's half my damage output. You'll see a noticeable difference in the damage output here. It's not too noticeable, but you can definitely see where he's taking less damage from my ability here by about a couple hundred points. The Acolyte's Cord, don't care. Another item for soldiers, as you've probably noticed. If I was doing cold damage, this would be incredible. I am not currently, so we're not going to worry about that. Sure, you might be thinking, ooh, it's a blue item. That seems incredible. It could be if I was building Absolute Zero at this time, but I don't have that right now, so it's not really going to do me any good right now. Also, the armor is really good, don't get me wrong, but the resistances are kind of weak. And if I was doing a cold-based build, that would last me a decent amount of time, longer than most boots, but it's still not necessarily something I would be likely to keep equipped in the long term. Go ahead and get rid of these guys here. Just because they bother me. Actually, we're just going to go ahead and sigil you, just because I don't want to just run over there and deal with you myself. And then walk in the sigil. There you go. Instantly takes care of the zombies. Can I actually? I can. Okay. I can never remember if I can throw anything over the fence. It depends on the ability. So I always forget which ones can and which ones cannot be thrown over the fence. Alright. Get rid of you. Throw that up there so I don't get exploded. Now this can be a tough fight if you're not prepared for it. These are ethereals, so if you do elemental damage, this might be a bit more difficult for you in Elite, the second difficulty. You'll see that later on. But for my Chaos Vitality focus, there's only going to be one guy here that's going to be a problem. There's another Vitality focused hero. Wow, really slapped me there. You can see a bit of a difference. You can see, even though he has 2,000 less health, he was actually lasting as long as the other guy. Alright. And 2,000 health is a lot of this difficulty. If you're raising your eyebrows right now. It really is a substantial amount of life difference at this particular juncture. But right now we finally have enough for Iskandra, so we're going to put that on to start increasing our energy regeneration naturally. And before we rift back to Devil's Crossing. I'm going to wipe these guys out really quick just because I beheld them with my eye, and they have earned my ire as a result. That's for usually demolitionists. Oh, you think you're tough, huh? What do you think now? One straggler over there, but I really don't care. So we're going to come up over here, and we're going to go into this building. Crack this wall open. We're going to grab these cultist orders. And off we go. Back to Devil's Crossing, where we're going to report in a bunch of... no, actually, I almost forgot. Got to return to Burwitch Outskirts and give the hammer to Duncan. This is something I occasionally still forget, even to this day, because it's just usually, oh, you've completed the quest, go back and report it in. This is one of the few where you actually have to drop off an item first. This happens again in one of the DLCs pretty commonly, but I'll, again, talk about that when we come to it. So, here we are. Report this in. And then I'll want to sell some stuff really quick first. None of this is particularly useful. I'll keep this for posterity. I don't care about the rest of this. Oh, I actually am going to keep the, this toxic effigy temporarily for posterity, because that's actually pretty sweet. Alright. Now we're going to talk to John Bourbon first. Now the reason why is because when we do the Dureni quest, if we decide to, I'll just actually talk to Ulgrim really quick first. If we do the Dureni quest, you have another choice here with Dureni. You can either choose to kill him now, which prevents him from being a mild annoyance later, or you can spare him and get a strange key to unlock that cultist place that we were in last episode. If you did not pick up the strange key as a random drop before, you'll want to spare him. If you did pick it up before, like I have here, you'll probably want to just get rid of him because he's really not worth the trouble later on. It's not that he's particularly damaging later on. I'll mention where he'll show up. He's just a little bit tanky, and it can take a little while to take him down, especially if you are a arcanist and you're focusing very heavily on aether damage. He's vastly tankier. I'll talk about that later on, but we're going to kill him because we have the strange key. We don't need a strange key from him. But if you kind of mix up if you haven't talked to John Bourbon after reaching Burwitch first, sometimes the quests get confused, or I don't know if it still does that today. This is way back in the day. I had some problems with that, so I've just always done it that way. Now we got to talk to the blacksmith. Okay, so this is where you really are going to start to see some dividends going on here with a lot of this stuff. So a lot of the stuff that I have access to, you won't, because I've been kicking around for a while. In here, I have more recipes unlocked. You unlock recipes by simply having the recipe drop. And that's just about it. There's all kinds of things that I can make that you won't be able to. Don't worry about it, in all honesty. For example, I could make these, and, you know, yay, verily. All I'm really looking for right now is, very specifically, this, because it has some experience gains. It's got really strong armor. It actually lasts you a decent amount of time, so I'm going to want to make one of those. Actually, I might just have some in my inventory. I'd have to check. But what I'm even more interested in is an upgrade for this. Now, you can craft these things called components. I haven't talked about these yet because it's only at this point when you have access to the blacksmith that it actually matters. But you can attach these items to boost your damage in a lot of ways and stuff like that. And they're really absolutely fantastic. But what I'm looking for very specifically is this Rift Stone, because that allows me to enhance my weapon with even more chaos damage. Unfortunately, I need to be level 20 for this, so I'm going to be waiting on this, but this is the kind of thing that I will want to be equipping later on. So we're going to go ahead and drop off our crafting materials. Now keep in mind that if you attach a component to a piece of equipment that is a lower level than the component is... Do I have a spare pair of pants? I don't, but I do have spare shoes, which works. And I don't have a spare hood, but that's fine. I could probably fish one out from another character if I was really concerned. I probably will, so that way I can show you what equipment sets look like. I'll explain that in the next episode. I want to actually have a full equipment set to show you, to demonstrate this. So we're going to go ahead and conclude the episode here. Thank you all very much for joining me. If you like this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. I apologize for that noise. It was me accidentally punching my mic. And thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.